What's going on, guys? Eric Swanek here with Swan Hockey. We are back with another episode of Swan Hockey Live. Tonight we are talking about the tryout process for the remainder of summer, how it kind of changes or should change, depending on your status with the North American Hockey League draft that wasn't too long ago. As we wait here for, let people filter in here. If you're new here, as always, welcome. This is a completely interactive podcast. We, want to hear from you, want to hear, where you play, where your player plays. If you're, a parent or aunt, uncle, guardian, friend of a parent, friend of a player. So let me know where you guys are coming from. Let me know where you play. It'll help drive the show. It'll help, try to answer some of your questions. Again, just throw your comments up there, completely interactive. Be sure to check out the Swan Hockey website, guys. We have a lot of really cool things coming out here shortly. Hopefully we're days away. And as always, join the Discord. It's Discord's a community. It's our community chat, and it's it might be a little confusing at first to some people, but it's once you get the hang of it, it's super, super easy. It's going to be very important here going forward. So if you're not in the Discord already, jump into the Discord server. You can go to swanhockey.com to get access to it. And if you need help, just ask somebody. That's, again, the community aspect of this is very important. And that's what community is for, is helping everybody. So if you need help, just shout out, and should be somebody there to help you, myself included. So without, let's get into it. So the big pivot point right now this summer is the North American Hockey League draft that was not too long ago here. And the reason why the North American Hockey League draft is, a very big, pivot in the summer and very important in the summer to a lot of players and families is because of how many players and families are, interacting with the North American Hockey League, right? The North American Hockey League, there's, they're in contact with a lot of, their marketing machine. They're in contact with a lot of players, a lot of families, and there's a lot of players and families that, go through the process with the North American Hockey League. And as the summer progresses, that process changes. It, again, so that's why, the focus tonight kind of is on the NA draft and, what just went on and, where to go from here, just because, again, how many people the NA process touches throughout the summer. So let's talk a little bit about the North American Hockey League, how they assemble a team, right? So the way it works is going into the draft, every team will have a protected list, and the protected list will include, their returners, their tenders. So everybody going into the draft, their list is going to be different, and they will draft until they hit a full list, which this year, according to the website, the list was at 28, right? So every team will draft until they hit 28 players, which is why you're seeing pass for a lot of teams, right? Like, because every team's going into it with a different number. That's why you'll see teams passing. It's not that they don't want to take anybody. It's that they've reached their maximum number, and they cannot take anybody else. So going into the draft, the teams will draft until they're at a full protected list, which according to the website right now is 28. Last year, I think it was 30. There's also some, not discrepancy, but the North American League also has, rules in place, about tendering or drafting players from within, meaning the NA3HL or the NAPHL. And the way it was explained to me last year by a coach was that you had to draft a guy from the NA3, and there was something else. I don't know if it was a tender from the NA3, but there was like 2 extra guys that they didn't count towards the protected list. They were protected, but they didn't count towards the list. And again, I don't, that's the way it was explained to me last year. But so this year, according to the website, their number this year is 28. So teams will draft till they're at 28. So right now, every North American Hockey League team technically has 28 players, right? They're all full at main camp. The list will expand, and it should be expanding to 35. That's what it was last year. It should be expanding to 35. And then teams will roll into training camp with 35, and they have to get it down to 25 by the Blaine Showcase, or by the start of the season. Some teams will start a week or two before Blaine. So opening night rosters will be at 25, and then after Blaine, they have to get it, which is the couple weeks into the season, the Blaine Showcase. After Blaine, they have to get it down to 23 guys. So ultimately, 23 guys are going to make the team. Right now, everybody is at 28. So that's very important for everybody to understand heading into tonight's podcast and heading into the rest of your summer. They have to be down to 23 players. Every team currently is at 28. Now, with that said, teams certainly will make upgrades if they could find them, right? And that's the way I explained it a couple months ago, was that before the draft, teams are looking for players. After the draft, teams are looking for upgrades. They have the players, they're looking for better players if they could find them. So, going into it, it's important to understand, how that works, where again, stage one is kind of, tenders and returners. Then we move into draft picks, and then, we're filling out to, like I said, 35 at main camp, and then it's got to get down to 25 and then down to 23. So it's important to understand how the process works and understand where you sit today in the process. And for the vast majority of players, the vast majority of the players are on the outside looking in, right? Most guys that are going to watch this, or most guys that are involved in this process in some way, shape, or form, just because of the numbers, right? There's camps in the NA with 200 players at them, right? Majority of the players are on the outside looking in. So it's just important to understand that. It's not a bad thing. It is what it is, right? You understand it and understand where you're at, and it'll help you navigate to get to where you want to go, right? Like if I told you to meet me in Florida and I was just going to dump you out of an airplane somewhere over the United States and not tell you where you're at, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get there. So understand where you're at, and then use it to navigate accordingly. One thing I'd like to know is, for everybody listening right now, put in the comments, maybe what camps you've gone to, or if you don't want to mention teams, that's fine. But I'd be curious to know who in here, has gone to pre-draft camps, who's been invited. I imagine the vast majority have been invited to main camps, but I want to know who's, kind of who's doing what. Again, it'll help, for everybody that's watching tonight or that watches in the future. Again, Swan hockey is very big. We're building the community aspect of this. So let's use that to our advantage. Let's see who's been going to pre-draft camps, who's getting invited to main camps. If you want to put the team in there, put the team in there. Because once everybody starts talking, everybody kind of starts to see similarities in the situations, and it's gonna help you guys. So throw that in the comments. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, give the video a thumbs up. It'll help drive the algorithm. So we're gonna dive into this. We're gonna dive into this. So let's first look at the North American Hockey League draft results. And again, this is extremely important. And even if you're a younger player, or you have a younger player, pay attention to this, because this is going to help you for the future. You're going to be in this process one day if you're not already there now. So it might, if it doesn't exactly directly impact you today, it very well could next year or the year after. So, the idea here is to be ahead of the curve. You want to be educating yourselves, and you want to be ahead of the curve. You don't want to wait till there's a problem to do something about it. So according to the North American Hockey League website, and you guys can check this all out online, according to the North American League site, there was a total of 297 players drafted in the North American Hockey League at the 2024 draft. So we had 297 players. Of those 297 players, broken down by birth year, 86 of them were born in 2004. So those are going to be our 20-year-olds. 106 of them were born in 2005. 73 of them were born in 2006. 30 of them were born in 2007. And 2 of them were born in 2008. So let that sink in. And I've talked about it before on here. The North American Hockey League is an older league. It's a veterans league. It's a heavy league. It's a more physical league. It's older than the USHL. It's older than all three major junior leagues. It's older than the NCDC. Um, it's actually it's probably the the oldest league going right now in terms of tier 2 junior A. Like the whole CJHL, they have limits on 20-year-olds. BCHL should have a limit on 20-year-olds. The North American League, there's no limit on 20-year-olds. You can go 23 20-year-olds across the board if you want to. So the North American League is definitely an older league. So that's important to know, and important for when you're planning and taking your next steps of, if you're a younger guy, know that it very well just could take some time, and you have to find somewhere to play that's going to be great for your development. Because again, it could just take some time, and you want to use that time wisely. So again, 04, we had 86 players drafted. 05, 106 players drafted. 2006 birth year was 73 players drafted. 2007 birth year, 30 players drafted. 2008 birth year, two players drafted. Now, what's interesting, and this is where you guys will start, helping yourselves and helping each other, whether you're watching this live or watching it on demand later, comment your birth year and comment if you were invited to a pre-draft camp. And again, if you want to leave the team out, fine. I would tell you to put the team in there. You're not saying anything bad about it. You're just commenting who invited you. But I'd be very interested to see, again, I think, it's going to help everybody. Put it in the comments of what birth year you are and if you were invited to a pre-draft camp. And then also throw in too anybody that was invited or attended the combine, right? And I think one of the, and guys, these numbers too, before I get into my next point here, these numbers are pretty, like, they're not really unique. It's pretty much the same story every year. You can go back and look at the past drafts, and same thing. It's all broken down there right on North American League website, and it's pretty consistent year in, year out. And and again, this is why I'm saying, even if you're a younger guy right now that's watching, you want to pay attention to this stuff, because maybe you're a younger guy that didn't go to a combine last year. Well, look at the draft results. Might not make the most sense to go to a combine next year either. It's again, 30 2007s were drafted, 2 2008s were drafted, right? So unfortunately, if you were going to these combines with the goal of, hey, I'm going to go play in the league this year, again, it's an older league. It's not really, it's rare to have those younger guys in the league. So you want to make sure that you're spending your time, spending your money wisely, something that's going to actually make a difference. And, this isn't me ragging on the North American League. The North American League, it's a fantastic league. They do a lot of really great things. The combines and the invites for, the younger guys, and just the blind stuff. That's just not it. I think that they could be doing this a better way. I just don't think that, they've hit the nail on the head for the younger guys, whether that's, we're not going to get into all that, but whether it's, maybe, if they changed the way they draft, I think it would, in terms of the structure of their draft, and did something more like the USHL or something more like the major, the three major junior leagues. I think that, having younger guys at combines and pre-draft camps could make sense. But right now, I would say for the vast majority of you guys, if you're on that, so next year, like maybe the 08s and, 09s, I mean, it might not be the best choice to spend your time and, spend your money. So moving on now to by position, and, this just makes sense based off of, 3 forwards, 2 D1 goalie, but, on the ice at a time. So by position, 60% of the draft were forwards. It was 177 players. 33% of the draft were defensemen, 98 players, and 7% of the draft were goalies. It was 22 goalies. So that was the breakdown. Now here's probably, I don't want to say the most interesting part, but this is, this and the birth year, I think, are extremely important. So here's where the players were selected from. Now, leading the way, as again, which is usually consistent year in and year out, leading the way was Canadian junior. So the most players drafted in the NA draft were drafted out of Canadian Junior. Let that sink in, because I put something on, I think I put on social media a few days ago that, and I've talked about it on here before, the North American Hockey League is one of the best tier 2 junior A leagues there is. It really is. I would say the BCHL is number one, and then the North American League is right behind it, number two. Those two leagues, they're the show in town for tier 2 junior A. And then there's a bunch of other leagues. You got 9 other tier 2 junior A leagues in Canada, plus the NCDC, that are all going to fall somewhere in between the North American Hockey League and tier 3. And I think a massive mistake that I see so many players and families make year after year is when the North American League doesn't work out for them, they go right to tier 3. And I don't know if it's because they're uneducated on what else is out there. I don't know if it's because they just got done running around all summer and they're just so fed up and just so done, and they just sign with, a local team. Or I don't know if it's that they're sold, hey, go to tier 3 and, or go to our tier 3 team and we're going to call you up, which obviously that happens a lot too. So, the biggest point, of this is that utilize the other tier 2 junior A leagues. The North American League is one of the best. It really is. But if you fall short of that, utilize the other ones, right? And because, again, leading the way this year, the most players drafted in the North American Hockey League this year were from Canadian Junior. So going down the list, not in any particular order, but there were 42 players drafted out of U18, 27 players drafted out of the NA3HL. Now, important to know about this, the North American Hockey League has a rule. Every NA team has to draft a player out of the NA3. They have to. There's no way around it. There were 10 players drafted out of the USHL. There was 20 players drafted out of high school. There was 40 players drafted out of prep school. 27 were drafted out of quote unquote other junior. So the other junior should be the whole USPHL circuit, including the NCDC and the EHL. 24 players were drafted out of U16. 23 players were drafted out of European Junior. 1 player was drafted out of the North American Hockey League. And then, and the way that works, guys, is obviously that 1 player, it seems to be a situation where he was just left off the protected list and somebody else took him, right? So the team didn't want to protect him. They were done with him and somebody else took him. So that's how that works. And then 2 players were drafted out of the NCAA slash ACHA, which leads me to believe it was 1 and 1, because if there was nobody drafted out of the ACHA, why even list it? But it said NCAA slash ACHA and it said 2. So just, again, if one of them didn't have 1 drafted, I can't imagine why they would list them. So there's probably 1 and 1 drafted out of there. So, again, Canadian Junior leading the way. We'll look back at some of this other stuff. Prep school did a great job, obviously, with 40 guys drafted. Yeah. So I think it's this is where we start to kind of dive into the topic of tonight. Okay, the draft's over. Now what? Right? If you were drafted, obviously there's there's opportunity ahead of you for most guys, right? There's you're going to be able to, whether you're interested in the league or not, or if you're undecided, you're going to be able to use it as leverage for for other situations. If there's something else that you want more, maybe you want to go to BCHL, or maybe there's something else that you're that you're really into. So if you're drafted, obviously it's a great thing. It's going to start to put you in the driver's seat a bit. It's going to give you some leverage for the majority of the guys. You'll probably still go to the main camps, and yeah, you can lose your spots 100%. Like I said at the beginning, teams are always looking for upgrades, but the guys that are drafted, they definitely have a leg up going into the camps. For a guy that's drafted to get cut, somebody has to admit that they screwed up, right? So the guys going, and they're more familiar with them, right? These camps they're short. It's, to impress, to change minds one way or another over 3 days. It's not easy, But so the guys that were drafted definitely have a leg up, and but there's still work to be done. And again, you just kind of evaluate your situation now, and you could use it with leverage, and in other situations if there's something else that you're still interested in, and you know and it really puts you in a good situation. The only group that getting drafted might not be the same is the NA3 group, right? The guys that were drafted out of the NA3, again, it's a league rule. They have to draft somebody out of the NA3. Every team has to draft one, right? And like there's, I mean, it's sad to say, but there's teams like their NA3 picks. There's teams that they probably don't. Again, they drafted them because they have to, right? So I would urge everybody that got drafted out of the NA3 to proceed with caution, right? I'm not saying that, again, there's no blanket rules in this. I'm not saying that it's every player. I'm not saying, it really, really, again, it depends, but, it's not a good sign that the NA3, that their draft picks are so low, and every team, like I said, has to take one. And I actually don't know off the top of my head how many teams are in the NA, but I did hear that for this upcoming year, but I did hear that the NA3 had 1-to-1, meaning that there was, one NA3 pick per team and no more, like nobody selected two. So those guys definitely do have to, that's one of those, again, like kind of behind the scenes things, rules of the league, where, you have to, again, you can't get as confident with it, being drafted as the NA3 as, one of the other draft picks. And again, I'm sure there's some players that they are, legitimate picks, but again, when the league is forcing guys to draft out of a certain league or certain place, there's definitely going to be picks that they're not made for the right reasons. And it's the same thing with the tenders. So the North American Hockey League, every team has to hit a certain amount of tenders out of the NAPHL, right? It's like there's a difference between a team using, I guess what we all call them are, normal tenders versus an NAPHL tender, right? Like when I'm talking to teams, like we're having those two different conversations. Okay, how many tenders are available? How many NAPHL tenders are available? Because it's a difference. And guys that are, same thing as the NA3 draft picks, guys that are tendered out of the NAPHL, again, that tender might not be as legitimate as as some of the other ones. So again, it's just something to, again, know your position in this horse race and know where you're at. It's going to help you move. It's going to help you move forward. It's going to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. So, if we get into, again, continuing on the topic here tonight, before we move forward, does anybody have any questions about anything? If you do, just throw it in the comments. Again, this is completely interactive. Any questions that you have, throw them in there. Any comments, if you want to share your experience. A few minutes ago, I asked, if anybody wants to share where they were invited to or where they've attended pre-draft camps, or where, same thing. If you're, getting some main camp invitations, if you guys want to start putting those in there, whether you're watching live or, watching later. Again, the community aspect is going to help everybody. You'll start to see where the, what the common denominators are in terms of, teams with the, you'll start to see some of the stuff like with the invites, like which teams are, heavy hitters with this and everything. But yeah, just throw your comments up there, and so let's move forward. So now that the draft is over, again, the reason why I say that this is a big, milestone or big, turning point in the summer is because if you were a guy that was drafted, now you have another card in your hand that you can use to negotiate. You can use to, again, it's just something else that you could use as leverage. You have another card in your hand now moving forward. throughout the summer. So if there's another team somewhere that, or maybe you're a guy that's on the bubble of the USHL and North American League, and if you were drafted high, it's going to show the USHL teams, okay, somebody else believes in him too. Like, it's not just us. It's your stock goes up, right? So you're going to be able to use it to build momentum, and if you use it the right way, again, you can, you can, you can use it to leverage and get, maybe get more than what you were able to get 2 weeks ago. For the guys that weren't drafted, which is the vast majority of players, this is where I would urge everybody to start looking heavily at other options. I'm not saying don't pursue the North American League, right? You still want to go to the main camp, go pick a main camp or two and go. But I would definitely start heavily looking at other options, because right now, if you were not drafted, you're on the outside looking in, or you're on the bubble at best, right? Every team, right now, just like you guys were getting all those emails and stuff months ago about the pre-draft camp, and hey, we think we might draft you, yada yada yada, all that, right? The process just repeats itself. Now it's on to main camp, right? Now this is the time of year where all the stories come out. Oh, we were going to draft you, but you were going to be our next pick, but this other player became available, or, oh, this crazy trade happened that we didn't think, or, oh, I liked you, but our head coach, really wanted to go with the other guy, or I liked you, but all of our, our GM or all of our assistants wanted to go with the other guy. All the stories start to come out now. It all equates to one thing. They didn't pick you. All right. They could have, but they didn't. Right. You know why it's a numbers thing? Because they only get so many picks. Right. And they pick somebody else. That's why it's a numbers thing. Right. That's why, oh, it's a numbers thing. If we hadn't, you were next on our list. Right. Well, they could have picked you. They chose not to. So again, that's just, I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear. I tell you guys what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So again, if you want to, the process just repeats itself now. So now you're going to start hearing all those stories. You're going to be getting your invitations to the main camp. And again, it just repeats itself. So if you're pissed off that, you're a 2008 and you were being hounded to go to pre-draft camp, and now there's only 2008s drafted out of 297 players, and you're pissed off, well, maybe give it a hard look before you jump back on the wagon to go to main camp, right? And definitely do not put all your eggs in that basket. Again, I'm not telling anybody not to go to main camp. You want to go, but definitely start looking at other options. Guys that are on the bubble in North American League, I would urge you to look at the other tier 2 junior A options, right? Don't go right to tier 3. Utilize one of the other, many junior A leagues, right? There's 9 junior A leagues in Canada that I would say are not as strong as the North American League. And then you got the NCDC. So start looking at those. And again, looking at the draft results, those are where, the Canadian junior ones, that's where the most players were taken from. Right. And I don't know about the NCDC because they loop them, they group them into other junior. There was a total of 27, but they, year after year, the North American League proves that their number one source for the draft is Canadian junior hockey. So go there, right? Don't worry about all the other bullshit with the pipelines and this and that. And, oh, you play for our midget team, or, oh, you play for our tier 3 team and this and that and the pipeline, and we're going to pull you up. No, look at what they do, not what they say, right? The number one source is Canadian junior. And you know why it's Canadian junior? Because the North American League is an old league, right? It goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. The North American Hockey League, it's an older league. Again, going back to it for anybody that wasn't here in the beginning, there was 106 players born in 2005 drafted. There was 86 players born in 2004 drafted, and then 73 players out of the 2006 birth year. So next year, that's 18, 19, 20, right? 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And again, the most were the 20-year-olds and the 19-year-olds. It's an old league. That's why they're going to Canadian junior. And because they want experience. It's an older, heavy league. They want experience. So they're going to the next best thing, which is the other tier 2 junior A leagues. They're not going to, to youth. They're not going to, to tier 3. They're going to the guys that are right there, that are, they're right there. They're old, they have experience. That's where they're going. So I would urge you guys to go in that direction, right? I never like to see a player hold himself back from playing a higher level and choose to go to a different level, the lower level, all because he's hoping it's going to morph and turn into something else. Go to the highest level where you can get a regular shift and do well, right? And make it your goal that every team in the North American League wants you next year, right? Forget the one team that's telling you, hey, go play for our NA3 and, maybe the next year we'll want you. No, go play what's best for your hockey development and your overall stock in this game and make every team want you, right? Or how about this? Make a USHL team want you or CHL team want you, right? Like there's still a higher level, right? Make a tier 1 team, a tier 1 junior team want you, whether it's USHL or CHL, right? You don't put on the brakes for anybody. You keep running 100 miles an hour forward. So again, North American League is one of the 2 best junior A leagues there are in North America. And if you cannot play in that league, I would urge you to just go to the next best thing. Don't start going down this rabbit hole and going 2-3 levels below on promises and bullshit and all this other stuff. So we have a comment here, a question from Mike. Mike wants to know what Canadian junior had the most picks. Mike, I do not know. It was not broken down like that. So this information I'm getting is right on NAHL.com. You could even just Google NAHL draft results and, it'll come up. They put out an article every year basically breaking down the draft. And this is the information I was provided. So I mean, and it might not also, they may also not want to share which particular league did what, but yeah, I think it was pretty evenly, spread out, not completely evenly spread out, but I just, again, like there's a lot of tier 2 junior A in Canada and they're very good leagues. I mean, they're, like I say that the North American League is ahead of them, but a lot of the leagues, I mean, you can go right from there to Division 1 NCAA. I mean, guys get drafted to the NHL out of tier 2 junior A in Canada. In fact, I would say there's more NHL draft picks out of tier 2 junior A Canada than the North American League. So yeah, again, just moral of the story. Like if you're a guy that's right there, right on the bubble, I would definitely start paying heavy attention to the next best thing. And listen, I say next best thing, but it might actually work out better for you. Every league has a different style of play, and some players excel at different styles. So there might be a player that might not be able to make the North American League, or he's not maybe doesn't fit well in the North American League, and then goes somewhere else and absolutely rips it and gets a Division 1 deal. It's not uncommon at all. So there's a lot of great hockey out there, and again, all these teams, all these leagues, they're just tools in a toolbox. You pick out the best one to help build what you're trying to build, right? If you're trying to fix the window, you're not going to take out a hammer. So, find the one that's best for you and and roll forward. So, and guys that, moving into the next player pool, like guys that maybe they're not close to the North American League level. Like when I say guys that are close to the North American League level, I mean like the guys that are playing in the All-Star games, right? Because you got to remember, even when you make the All-Star game at camp, I mean, it's 2 teams of 20, so you have 40 guys. They're only able to, ultimately to only be able to have 23. So even the All-Star game, I mean, you could probably say most of those players in the All-Star game won't play in the North American League. They're not going to make the team. They're not good enough. Right. And I know, a lot of guys out there right now might be thinking, well, hey, if 23 out of 40 make it, well, that's most. Yeah. But the problem is those 23 may not make it. Right. Because the teams keep recruiting all summer long. So they have their main camp. Well, that's okay. Main camp's over. They still keep recruiting. The show doesn't stop. They don't have to take players from tryouts. Right. So they may, out of that main camp, out of that All-Star game, those 40, you might have, you know, maybe 5, 6 guys that weren't there that that wind up playing that wind up playing on the team, right? So that 20, you might have 5, 6 guys, whether it's guys from USHL that, don't they wind up getting sent down from the USHL, or guys that just flat out weren't at main camp. I mean, not everybody goes to main camp. Like I know all the teams tell you they do, but they don't. And I'm talking about that from firsthand experience. I mean, guys that I've had that played in North American League, like they didn't go to camp, like, and again, like I'd probably say most guys do go to camp, but it's definitely not everybody, you know. Guys definitely do lose their spots in September to somebody that wasn't at camp. Somebody that the coach feels, hey, this kid's gonna help us, and let's take him. It happens all the time. And again, I'm speaking on firsthand experience with that. Um, so that's where it's important again to just know this stuff, because a lot of players do leave with a false sense of positioning in this game, where like, okay, like I made the All-Star game, or I was last cut before the All-Star game, I'm right there. Well, it's like, well, not necessarily. If you were cut before the All-Star game, like the guys that made the All-Star game, those guys I would say are very close. I would say those guys pretty, from the All-Star games I've watched, I would say, pretty much all those guys can play tier 2 junior A in Canada somewhere. Um, so if you want to use that as a little bit of a gauge, if you're playing in a, in a main camp All-Star game in the NA, you're probably a tier 2 junior A player. Maybe you're not a, NA or BCHL level tier 2 junior A player, but you're probably a tier 2 junior A level. And there's probably, no reason for you to hand any tier 3 team $10,000 to go play hockey. And, same thing, even with the youth teams. Sometimes if the player's still youth eligible, sometimes it can make sense to go back to youth hockey. But again, some of them are a very steep price tag. Can I tell you that, that it makes, $20,000 much of sense to go back? No, I can't tell you that with a straight face. So again, you got to kind of evaluate your situations and, what you guys need. There's just a lot of hockey out there, and you have to do your research, and there's a lot of options out there. Now, the guys that aren't making the All-Star games, right? Like, let's go to that, that other group. And, sometimes different camps are structured differently. Like maybe it'll go through 3 rounds of cuts, maybe it'll only do 2. So again, every camp's, the camps can be structured a little bit differently, but like the guys that aren't playing in the All-Star games, there is going to be a group out of those guys that can play tier 2 junior A somewhere. Right. And then a lot of those guys, majority of those guys will be tier 3 guys. So it's important to, to just kind of read the room, see where you're at. And, I would start for anybody that was not drafted or tendered in the North American League, I would heavily suggest you start looking at other options. And again, for people that are just joining or just joined a few minutes ago or whatever, I'm not by any means saying not to give the North American League a shot. I'm not saying not to go to main camp. I'm just saying don't buy the bullshit of the team telling you, hey, yeah, listen, we didn't draft you. You were next on the list, but please, just, come to the camp. It's $400, and, don't put all your eggs in that basket. Again, you want to go to the camp and give it a shot, go to the camp and give it a shot, but you better be having a ton of conversations with other teams and other leagues on a weekly or almost daily basis. So again, just going into that, that's why it's important to recognize that, the draft is a big turning point and should show you guys a lot of things. A lot of teams just showed their cards at the draft, right? So it's important to remember that. And, it's again, guys, do play, do players, do players get spots in the North American League as free agents? 100% happens all the time. But again, looking at the numbers, when you have 200 guys at a main camp, how many of those guys right? We're talking, I mean, it's the percentage is very, very slim, right? The percentage is very slim. 20, it's a very slim percentage. It happens all the time, but it's a slim percentage. So you want to make sure that you're, again, it's about planning, right? Planning and having the right perspective and doing something productive with your time and your money and that kind of stuff. Does anybody have any questions? I know Mike, I hope that, that I answered yours. Like I said, unfortunately they did not release which teams, or sorry, which Canadian leagues had the most, but, and again, guys, and Mike, another thing I want to comment on your question, and I think everybody can, also learn from, is when picking a league and a team, you want to pick something that suits your style of play, right? Like, it's not necessarily about what team had the most. It's, hey, where can I go that I'm going to get an opportunity and I'm going to be able to shine? Because again, like, who cares how many players did or didn't, as long as you did, right? So you want to put yourself in the best position possible to be one of those picks. And, I'm assuming, that you're looking at, something for next year. So like, Mike, what I would advise you to do is kind of do some homework and research on teams and leagues and see what might fit your playing style the best, right? Where do you think that you could be successful, and have a great showing, and, so you could be one of the guys next year, whether it's, moving up to the NA or moving up to, a different situation. So that's what I would suggest. Anybody else with anything, just throw it in there before we move along here. Guys, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and, again, lots of really cool things coming out here. We got, we should have a whole new merch drop next week. We're working on, a rewards program that should be out. That's going to, the whole goal of it is to reward you guys for things that you're already doing. It's going to be, it's going to be completely free. So it's just, again, a lot of really cool stuff. And, so just stay in touch here, stay connected through swanhockey.com or through social media. And again, the Discord, guys, the Discord's going to be so important moving forward here. I would urge you guys to, to just get on it. If you have any questions, just throw it in there. Somebody should be available to help you. And like I said, myself included. And, guys, just, we're trying to do a lot of really cool, really unique things here that, that I've, I don't want to say too much right now, but, things that I've never, ever seen anywhere in the hockey world. Like, we're going in a completely different, awesome direction. And, it's, a lot of it is geared towards trying to just, again, create a better experience for players and parents in this game. Like, you see it posted all over the Swan Hockey website, a better way to play the game. At least I think it's there. It was edited, not too long ago, but yeah, like, the whole thing is, just a better way to play the game. And that's what we're working on, getting going here for, for everybody. And I just think it's gonna, I think it's gonna kind of be like a aha moment for a lot of people, that it's just gonna make, again, just a lot of benefit. And I'm excited to get all this stuff launched. And just, I hope you, I know some of it's gonna seem really, really new and confusing, but I promise you guys, if you give it a little bit of a chance and you start to come along for the ride, you're going to be like, oh, why have we not been doing this the whole time? So hop into Discord, go to swanhockey.com. That's kind of like step one for you guys, because if you don't do it now, you're probably eventually going to do it later. So it's better that you guys do it now and start to get used to it on a smaller scale, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just go to swanhockey.com. You'll see it's under community tools, the Discord server. So you'll go there. Once you sign up for Discord, and once you're in the server, you'll have to verify yourself. There'll be a channel on the left-hand side that says verify. And yeah, hope to see you guys in it. So yeah, let's move forward here. Just looking at some notes here for the show. Another big reason why, even if we're talking, like, whether we're talking about tier 3 or tier 2, so another big reason why it's very, very important to start, seriously considering your quote unquote backup plan now is because if you wait too long, all the good ones are going to be gone, right? Like, once these camps start, getting over with, there's like a mad dash. And now all those teams that, were desperately looking for players 2 months ago, um, all those players that were looking, all those teams were looking for players 2 months ago. Now they got more players than they know what to do with because all the camps are getting done, right? Like everybody's everybody's a one level higher guy during the summer, right? And then once everything breaks and, then, so you want to start to develop that backup plan now. And in fact, it should already be starting to develop. You should never really not have a backup plan, but you want to act now before all the good ones are gone, right? And then not only could teams, not have any more, availability, or you lost out to somebody else that's similar in caliber to you, but also think about the financial side, right? Like a lot of you guys, and I don't blame you one bit, everybody wants a discount, right? Like nobody wants to pay full price to play tier 3 or to play tier 2 in Canada, right? Because a lot of the Canadian leagues, or some of the Canadian leagues, they do charge, nothing really like what tier 3 charges, but they charge something, right? And everybody wants the discount. So you want to get on this before their discount money is gone. All right. And, and listen, like, I know that, just to be clear, it's according to NCAA rules, nobody's supposed to get a discount. So I'm not saying to get one or not get one. I'm just saying, or that teams give them or don't give them. Like, I think we all know how that goes. It's, you're also supposed to follow the speed limit, right? Like, but yeah. So like, for anybody that is, concerned about, the financial piece, again, like, you want to start to develop this plan when there's the flexibility on the team's end. Right. So that's another reason why it's extremely important to start doing this stuff now and, read the room, read what's going on around you. And that's why I wanted to have this episode tonight, because the NA draft was, again, it was extremely important. It was a big turning point. It's something that I think a lot of players, the draft comes and goes and they're just like, oh, all right, tomorrow's the same as yesterday. No, it's not anymore. Right. Like, it's a whole different world we're in now because of the draft. We got some more comments here from Mike. Mike says, looks like BCHL, then AJ, then MJ/OJ. Thank you, Mike. That's interesting. Mike, if you don't mind, can you post where you're getting that from? I don't know if you have a link, or if you saw it on a Twitter or X now, an X post. I know there was an X post not too long ago that did break things down more, but it wasn't from a league. I think it was an individual, and I wasn't familiar with the source, so that's why I kind of didn't bring it into tonight, because I wasn't familiar with the source. But yeah, that's very interesting, Mike, and I appreciate you looking that up. So yeah, Mike, if you can just throw a comment up there of what, where you got that from, or if you have a link or something, if you could post it, that'd be awesome. Same thing. Anybody else has anything, throw it up there, chime in. Mike, again, thank you very much for, contributing to this. That's the whole goal of this. And, as this grows, guys, like I said, the community aspect of this is going to be huge. Like, it's a good thing to talk. It's a good thing for everybody to share their experiences, because you guys can learn, trust me, I see it all the time, right? Which is why I was thinking, I thought, like, hey, like, what if we do this differently? What if we knock down all these walls? What if I, instead of keeping everything a secret, what if we get everything, out in the open? What if I bring coaches onto the show, which I've done already, and we're going to look to continue to do? What if we, let you guys interact with them, hear from them, that kind of stuff. And, let's get all the players and parents connected and talking. And again, that's part of the Discord. Like if you guys hop in a Discord, it's really, really cool. Like there's a bunch of different chats, so like to talk about different topics and stuff. Like it's not just like one free for all group chat. It's like controlled chaos. It's like, all right, here's a chat for this, here's a chat for that. We're gonna here's the junior hockey chat, here's the college hockey chat, here's the NHL fan chat. Like, so there's a different chat for you to go into depending on what it is you want to talk about or learn about or share your experience about. Again, all in an effort to grow the community aspect. And so that's why urge you guys to do, because the more everybody talks and shares their experience, the better it's going to be for everybody. Because again, like I see it every year, like where players are sending me these emails, like, hey, I got invited to this, I got invited to that. And I'm looking at it, it's like, again, they're all the same. Like it's like, all right, I guess this team sent out their mass email today because I just had 5 players tell me they got invited to it. It's all the same team. Right. And, so that's what again, the more everybody can, share about this kind of stuff, the better off everybody is going to be. If it stays a big secret, then nothing's going to change. But yeah, so just going to look at some more notes here. Yeah, guys, I mean that's pretty much it in in a nutshell. I would, more of the story, read where you're at, and really, really start to, if you weren't drafted, really, really start to look at some other avenues. Because there's some really great avenues out there. There really is. And you just want to be, because here's the other thing too, like going back to the point of how hard it is to to make a team as a free agent. Which again, for anybody that's just recently joining, 100% it happens. I'm not discouraging anybody from from going down that from going down that road. It's it happens all the time, and there's some players that's what you have to do. You have to knock down the door and do it. And there's guys that are successful with it. And the other thing, it goes back to my point of like we're just talking about how hard it is. It goes back to my point a couple months ago, like where I was thinking, I'm like, everybody wants to go to main camp, and I'm thinking, why? And and I wound up sharing this with everybody. Like, yeah, like it looks better, it sounds better. Like, oh, I got invited directly to main camp. Or players will tell teams like, hey, yeah, I don't want to go to pre-draft camp. I want to go to main camp. And like, yeah, it looks better, it sounds better, but the better opportunity, honestly, might be at pre-draft camp, right? Like, because before, like I said before the draft, teams actually have open spots. They're looking to fill open spots. After the draft, they're looking for upgrades. Everybody's pretty much got a team, right? Again, every team right now is at 28 guys. You can only start the season with 25, and after Blaine, about 3 weeks into the season, you got to be down 23. All right, so Mike counted them the good old fashioned way. So Mike, that was awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. Yeah, so that's great. We got another question here from Ryan. Ryan says, how does being an affiliate player work? Which tier 2 leagues have them? So that's a great question, Ryan. And pretty much every tier 2 junior A league should have them. And how it works is going to be a little bit different. Depending on the league. So typically, I think off the top of my head, I think pretty much every league, the affiliate guys are allowed to play 10 games. Up to 10 games. And then I'm not sure what happens. After the team's season's over, like after they're out of playoffs, because this is like, again, like this is stuff that changes by the year, because like people try to find loopholes in this, like myself included. Like I remember I did it one year with a player, a long time ago. I was trying to send a player to a junior A team in Canada, and they only had affiliate spots left. So what the rule was that the affiliate player could play up to 10 games. And then after his team is out of playoffs, like after their season's over, then he can play unlimited games with the junior A team. So what we did was, this was in January, so the season was, almost over. So what we did was we sent him to the junior A team as an affiliate player, and we wound up having him signed with the worst junior B team we could find, and he was affiliated junior A. And then he never even went to the junior B city. He went to the junior A, took his 10 game, quote unquote call up, played 10 games junior A. By the time those 10 games were over, the junior B team was so bad that they didn't make playoffs. Their season was over. So then he was able to play with the junior A team full time. So again, some of the rules have changed just because people have taken, found the loopholes in the rules. Like I said, myself included. So I'm not blaming anybody. Got to play within the rules, right? And use them to the best of your ability and to the best of to your advantage. But yeah, so like the rules again sometimes change, but typically it's 10 games that the affiliate player could play in. I believe in North American League. I'm not sure if that's like your most desired target with that question because we're talking about it, but I think the North American League, I think their affiliate list has to be in December, and then after that they cannot change it anymore. So the way it should work in North American League is they can add a kid, play him 10 games, and then drop him, add a different affiliate. But then once December hits, that affiliate list has to be submitted, and it's frozen. So yeah, guys. So any last minute questions here? We're at an hour. We're gonna look to keep these things at an hour from now on. The last 2 or 3 episodes, they started to go over. Like we were having a really good time, which is great. But we want to make sure that there's some structure here, and so yeah, we're gonna be for the time being at least we're gonna be keeping these to an hour. This way you guys know what to expect dropping in and spending your time with us. So we're at an hour now, so we're gonna call it here. But if anybody has some last minute questions, throw them up now, and I'll try to answer them real quick. And I just want to thank everybody. Thank you very much for spending your time here tonight with me and with all of us. And again, check out stay connected. Check out the website. There's a lot of stuff on there. We also just recently released, there's a 24 hour 7-day a week live YouTube feed that you can go right on, just like for the people that are watching on YouTube right now. You can go right to the Swan Hockey YouTube channel, and there will be a 24 hour a day 7-day a week live feed that just kind of shows all the new things what's currently happening with Swan Hockey and what's around the corner for Swan Hockey. This way you guys can get familiar with it, check it out, and happy to have everybody in whatever capacity you choose. And again, check out Scout Central. It's our scouting platform. It's an incredible tool, and it's really, really going to help you guys be proactive. There's so much that we could do with it. There's and again, it's all an effort in connecting everybody. And if you're new here and you haven't been checking out the episodes, if you go check out the episodes of Swan Hockey Live that have a a guest on them that coaches, coach or GM or scout of a junior team, like we've had NA on here, OHL, I mean NCDC. So all those we've connected everybody through Scout Central during those episodes with player tags, and so the coaches can search the tags and stay connected with everybody. So if you go back to previous episodes, if you're new here, you go back to previous episodes and you're interested in adding those, checking the, learning about the coach, hearing what he has to say, and then, connecting with him, you can go back to the previous episodes and get the tag, get the player tag from that episode for that coach and add it. And yeah, so check that out, guys. It's it's an incredible tool. And there is a monthly fee for it, just so everybody knows. It's $22.99 a month. That Scout Central is. It's I've said this before, like joking around, but it's it's probably less money than what you guys are spending on coffee going back and forth to the rink, throughout the, probably throughout the week. But yeah, check it out. Hop in the Discord. Discord's free. We have a lot of free content across social media. And again, so take advantage of it. Happy to have you guys in whatever capacity you choose. And yeah, everybody have a great night, and we will see you next Thursday. All right. Take care, guys. Have a great night.